Okay, the first ever live Founders Lounge podcast. Neyts. Neyts was a guest a few episodes ago, a few months ago. Now we're doing it live a little bit differently in Slovenia, in MP Hub, which you are one of the co-founders of.
Yeah, not MP Hub, the organization that kind of then created MP Hub. Yeah.
It started as a, what? It was like a, what was it in the beginning?
It was a website.
It was a website.
It was a website in the beginning. Yeah.
I mean, that's quite a journey actually,
Yeah.
from how it started. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, like I shouldn't get any of the credit for
Yeah.
this place because I only have helped in the beginning. It was basically, so me and my co-founder went through the process of starting up a company in Slovenia back in 2007. It was a painful process back then in the former socialist republic, and yeah, it was just a painful process, and we kind of gathered all the documentation and the steps required to start up a business, and then we posted it online and added a forum next to it. The forums were big back in 2007.
Yeah.
And kind of invited a few friends to join the community, and just kind of grew out of there. And I mean, very early in the beginning, there were people that joined that are still leading the organization today. And so, Borut, who's basically the manager now, he's responsible for having this place. So yeah, now they have a co-working place. They have 3 co-working places. Last I checked. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
That's been, I had no idea. So it started as a website and then as a community forum, and then for a while you were doing education, a lot of workshops.
Yeah,
I don't know, that's the other thing. There was a bit of like an accelerator program that you were doing, and no, it's like an amazing co-working space here.
Yeah, and it's still one of the most popular entrepreneurship websites in Slovenia. There's a lot of businesses that started.
I remember when I was searching for anything business related in Slovenia, you Google for anything, MP is usually the first thing that comes up. So yeah, very good resource. However, even though we're here and that's what we started with, that's not the main topic that we're going to talk about today. So for a little bit of a teaser, Nate started other companies as well, and one of your products that could potentially be its own company was recently not very successful, and you guys lost around €1,000 or $1,000, $1 million. You wish it was. You wish it was just $1 million on that project, and you were kind enough to openly talk about how the whole process went and what you guys have learned. So I think that's going to be the main subject of discussion today. But before we get there, I'd love to talk a little bit more about you, just for the background, just to set the grounds about who you are and what's a little bit of the background story. So okay, you're a co-founder of MP Hub, but your main business is Niteo, right?
Yes, correct.
And Niteo
is a small Python boutique. So we're a small team, and we use Python to build software. And we started off just as a regular web consulting agency. We were building websites for people. But from day one, we kind of had this idea that we don't want to be consultants forever. We wanted to build our own products. And in the beginning, it started with MP, Mladi Podjetnik, organizations like that. Back in the days, we call those web portals. So the idea is you build a community, you get traction, you get people visiting, and then you can sell it off, sell the whole thing as a project. Over the years, this idea then morphed into SaaS type businesses, software as a service, and we've been a part of a startup here in Slovenia for a few years, a security startup, and we've done again a lot of consulting work. But since 2014, we've been strictly solely in that SaaS business. So we find a niche that has a problem and that can be solved with software. We solve it, and then we sell to the niche. And that's kind of the idea.
That's something that we talked about quite extensively in the previous episode, or the first episode that you were on, which was in Slovenian language. So if you're listening and you don't speak Slovenian, that's not going to be very helpful. But if you do speak Slovenian, then I recommend you to check it out. Neyts talked about how you did the whole sort of transition from being an agency to a product-focused business, and you gave away a bunch of different ideas as well. Somebody messaged me about one of your ideas, actually. I forwarded that to you, right?
Yeah.
So I recommend you to check that out. One interesting question maybe. I had somebody on the podcast, Jeremy, recently. He runs a very successful SEO agency in the US, and we had this discussion as well. I was like, agency versus product business, because he has an SEO agency that's doing incredibly well. They did $1 million in annual recurring revenue in their first year, so very well, very successful business from the very beginning. He's focused on SEO for SaaS businesses in the US. I think primarily in San Francisco. So, companies, startups that have a lot of money, and that's how they're running a quite high margin agency. That's doing really well so far. But he also owns a SaaS business that they acquired. So I think it's a rather small business. I don't know how much that's making, or I don't know how much of their resources is going into that SaaS business. But I asked him, I was like, agency, SaaS, what do you think? A lot of people are kind of saying that agency is a bit of a, high stress, low margins, essentially people are paying you for your time.
Exactly.
So you've done a little bit of both as well. I'm curious, I think we talked about it in the previous episode, but anyways, now for the English speaking audience, how do you look at it now? Agency versus SaaS?
I see agency as a stepping stone towards SaaS. So if you're just starting out, it makes sense to be an agency for a few years because you earn good money, you get a lot of experience because you're working with different clients, and you also build up your team, and so they get to know each other, and you get a good running team, and then you can start transitioning into SaaS. That's especially if you want to bootstrap, right? If you have access to investors and you can get investors in day one, yeah, sure, you can go SaaS directly. But if you're bootstrapping, the vast majority of people are doing at least some consulting, some agency work as they start off, just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, that's interesting. The financial aspect for sure, but the team aspect is something that actually I haven't heard about, or I haven't thought about either. But that's a very good point as well, right? You want to set up a good team, you kind of, I guess, test the waters, learn, recruit a good team, and then.
And there's so many things that can and will go wrong building a SaaS business. If you also if you can take one part of the problem space, which is the technical part, away, that's amazing, because then you can really focus on just the business side of the SaaS. Not like, is your team technically capable of building something, or like which technology stack you should use, or what DevOps approach you should use. You can refine that while you're still in the consulting phase, because your clients will want you to work in different technologies and with different approaches. You will be forced to try different technologies and stacks and approaches, and then you can choose one that you like and that you're familiar with, that your team knows really well. And that's then this entire technical problem space of building a SaaS can be more or less, neglected. Well, not neglected, but you don't need to think about it.
Yeah. Okay. So you started with an agency and you started building several different products. I think you told me the number. You've done a number of different experiments. We're talking like dozens of experiments.
No, over 150.
150.
Yeah.
150 different experiments, which I think I always like to point it out. But yeah, very often I think in entrepreneurship it's just a games number, right? You need
It is.
Try things and see what sticks, and eventually one thing takes off.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times it's a thing that you don't think it's gonna work out. I mean, there is some value in doing upfront market research and trying to guess which projects are going to be successful or not. But there's also a lot of value in just trying it out.
Yeah.
Figuring out how to make a really minimal product or a minimal proof of concept, and then start there.
Yeah. I read this quote recently. I'm probably not gonna say it correctly, but it's from a guy. What's his name again? Felix Dennis. Have you heard of him? He wrote this book called How to Get Rich.
No, I haven't.
Great title.
Yeah.
It's a very controversial title, but the guy was actually, extremely rich. He was a publisher in the UK. I think his net worth was like £700 million or something. So pretty successful. And he wrote a book when he was already, very, very well off. So I think he didn't write a book to actually make money. A lot of people that I really respect in business are recommending that book. So it's just a good kind of business, both strategic mindset, all those kind of things. And yeah, one thing that he said is success is never permanent, failure is never futile, or something like that. And the one key strength that entrepreneurs need is that you just keep going forward, keep going no matter what happens, which is really hard when you go through, out of 150, 140 or so were not very successful, right? Which sometimes can feel pretty daunting, but you gotta keep going, right?
You gotta keep going. That's the thing. I mean, and sometimes, it's really hard to know if a single project, it's hard to decide at what point you should stop working on a project because it doesn't make sense, or maybe you need to work a bit more. So maybe you have to go through a few more failures on that particular project before you say, oh, it's enough.
So how do you think about that actually? Because that's often hard for me as well. You try something new, and from my experience, the first time you put it out, it almost never works. Maybe you post it on Product Hunt and you get some traction, but that's also, it's like great, but that's just Product Hunt. It's like, yeah, okay, there's that spike of traffic. They're early adopters. They like to test products. You can't take it super seriously. It's good to get that first traction going, but it's not a steady stream of traffic and revenue, obviously. So you almost always need to iterate at least a little bit on the product or on the marketing or, just on the way how you're presenting the product. I'm curious, how do you think about that? When do you keep going and when do you say, actually, this is a waste of time? And we'll get to that.
Yeah, sunk cost fallacy is definitely a thing. So across over 100 projects that we tried or started in the last 15 years, for 2, I have to say that it was immediately obvious that there's something there, because the organic growth was just incredible. Not in terms of numbers, but just there were actually, even if we did nothing, every month new people would come.
Okay, so
it
like
was
product
obviously word of mouth was working there. So we're now trying to find the next product where we'll have that.
And that did you basically just launch that on something like Product Hunt, or did you launch some kind of advertising campaign for the 2 that were actually successful, right? Because you need to get those first users, and probably more as well, to before you get the ball rolling with more organic or referral, especially.
So our first massively successful project is basically a blog hosting service for SEO purposes, and we had a partner there, and the partner was a well-known name in the industry, and he sent out an initial newsletter to 15,000 people that he has worked with in the past, and also having him on the project gave the product some credibility from the get-go. And we basically started with 5K MRR from the first month or 2, and just every month was 10% more or 20% more, and that just kept growing and growing and growing. We basically didn't have to do any marketing. We were just fixing the stuff that was breaking as people were coming in and asking for features and bug fixes. So that was clearly, like, looking back, we're like, oh, why is this not making 300,000 on the launch day? Like, this sucks. But yeah, looking back, having 10% growth for a couple of years or even 20% growth, it was just amazing luck. The second one that had this, growth on its own was basically a machine learning algorithm for generating content for blogs a few years later. And here we just managed to catch this GPT wave. Everybody was talking about this GPT-2, GPT-2, the small models, and how this is going to improve, how this is going to completely revolutionize writing content.
I remember when GPT-3 came out, we had an AI expert on the podcast, Izzy. That's when I was co-hosting with Yanni, and we were both so excited. We got somebody to come on to talk about it.
Yeah. So, but we launched it before that, when GPT-2 came out, which was still not usable for everyone out there. So it was like a wave of interest, and also because we have a hosting business where a lot of people do need content, we already had thousands of people on the mailing list that we could launch to. So again, we got this initial critical mass of people. It's not a lot, like maybe 50 to 100 users.
Yeah.
And then from there, it just went organically. And because there was this huge wave of interest into GPT-2 and content generation, like it was very easy. There was people were writing about us without us doing any PR, any outreach.
You know, it's one interesting pattern in those are just two projects, but you had some really strong leverage for both of those. The first one was this partner of yours who was, they had their own brand, personal brand, mailing list. And then the second one was, the existing mailing list from the other product. And I guess you caught the hype wave as well.
Yeah.
You were able to.
You could call it almost like an upsell,
Yeah.
So in one way it was easier because it was an upsell, right?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Cool. And then, so I remember, the product that we're going to talk about, the big loss that you had now, we mentioned it briefly on the last episode.
Yeah.
When one of the interesting things that you mentioned that I remember was, I think you talked about how all the other products that you worked on until now, you had super limited budget for.
Yeah.
And you were like, super lean.
Scrappy.
MVP was very basic. Launch as quickly as possible. Yes. If it doesn't work, we shut it down.
Yeah.
But then there was this one exception where you said, we got some money now that we can invest in development of it. So what happened?
We got cocky. Like in essence, like it was. So WooCard is the name of the project that we were building after this first successful hosting thing. Got to a size where it was basically supporting itself and there was no real new development needed. The product was finished and we're looking for what to do next. And it was the first time in the history of the company, 12 years, where we actually had good money, like good reserves in the bank, cash flow every month. We're like, all right, now we're going to do this properly. Big red flag.
Yeah.
It all stems from there that this time we're going to do it properly, and just no, do not do it properly. And like we've already done like 80, 100 products before that, and we knew what the idea of MVP is, and you have to be really minimal and test things out. But it's so I cannot believe what we did. It's amazing.
You'll continue the story, but just one intermezzo before. 2 episodes ago, I think it was 2 episodes ago, I had a guest whose name is Ben. He used to be in Royal Marines in the UK. He was fighting in Afghanistan. He was in the army for, I think, about a decade. And we talked about what are the similarities between, what are the lessons that he took from being in the Marine to now being a founder. And he said there's still a lot of the things that he does them by the values that they have in the Marines. One of them is also humility. And he said humility is incredibly important for you to survive in the battlefield. Because if you get too cocky, you think like, I can do anything, you're going to die. This is the same in business. If you get too cocky, if you're like, now I know what I'm doing, you're going to start making mistakes.
100%. 100%.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so
we had this mentality of it's a big product, so we wanted to go into 10x bigger market. We'd established businesses already running in the market, like an old established market, which is just the general WordPress hosting space. And we're like, but we have an amazing team. We're not just going to do it; we're going to crush it. It's going to be the best product out there. But so 4 years later, we're about almost let's say 700-800K into loss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so 4 years. Can you talk a little bit more about the product? So it's called WooCart, and what is it?
It's called WooCart. It's basically potentially the only WooCommerce specific hosting platform. So WooCommerce is an e-commerce plugin for WordPress, and you can have a WooCommerce shop on any of the WordPress hosting providers, but they also support blogs and whatever else WordPress is used on. Our hosting platform was the first that was specifically built just to host WooCommerce shops.
Okay.
So we had a number of because we were only hosting WooCommerce, we could do a number of optimizations that other hosts couldn't do, and features such as lossless staging. So you could, for example, you could do a copy of your website to do upgrades or maybe a new design, and then before you publish that to production, if there were orders coming into the production side while you were doing the updates, we could actually sync those, and nobody else does that, and then you can sync those orders into staging and then push the staging to production. To this day nobody has this except WooCart. So we built out this amazing product. It took us 4 years, about €1 million in cost, and we basically burned out building it. And in the end, we decided to sell it because I would still say we're a very quite competent team in terms of technical ability, but we're not great with marketing and sales. We don't have a dedicated salesperson in the company, and we kind of shy away from enterprise sales and doing active sales. And in the end, we found a nice buyer that is a bigger hosting company that could integrate WooCart into their offering, which again for them is then an upsell to existing customers. So for them it makes a lot of sense because they have a lot of reach. And we didn't have that. Every customer would really have to fight for, and it was just going too slow for us, right? We got to 10K MRR by the end of 4 years, but at the rate that we were going, we would either need to raise a lot of capital to start throwing money into ads and sales, find an equity partner that would potentially do that, or sell it. And we decided to sell it because it just made sense for us, because we still have successful projects in the company, we still have positive cash flow, and we basically traded time for money, right? So we do have we make a loss in the end, but at least now we have a clean cut, and we can start thinking what we're going to do next.
Yes. Okay.
With money in the bank, so we have quite a long roadmap runway. But it's not that we have a long run. We basically have almost unless something goes terribly wrong, we have an infinite runway because we have a cash flow.
Yes. And we're not burning so much on developing this thing.
Yeah. And my co-founder and I, we really enjoy this first part of building a product from 0 to 1, and we both tend to lose interest in a product at about 2 to 3 years. So this one was already 4 years in the making, and it was kind of stressing us out already, and we were just itching to try the other 40 ideas that are in our backlog.
I have a lot of questions. But maybe one. We'll go back towards the beginning because I have a lot of questions about the beginning as well. But before we get there, because you just talked about how it all ended in the end, and it was, well, at least you managed to sell the product, right? So at least it's not the absolute worst when you just shut it down and you just take the loss and there's nothing you can do.
And we wouldn't want to shut it down because we had people on there that it's their livelihood. Exactly. Those e-commerce shops.
It's really hard to shut down that kind of product.
We wouldn't shut it down. So we were really looking for someone that can keep the people there. I mean, the stores on their online.
That is the thing with SaaS, right? What do you do if it's making a loss, but you can't really. it's quite painful to shut it down. I guess the best thing you can do is, the best thing you did is what you did, I suppose. Was it easy to find a buyer? Was it hard?
It was easy, yeah. It was surprisingly easy. We posted it on Microacquire, and 2 months later, we basically had the deal done.
Nice. Okay. So, like you said, like a large hosting provider or something.
I would say medium-sized. It's not like GoDaddy size.
Yeah.
But they do have a number of hosting companies already in their group.
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting. You said you always lose interest after 2 to 3 years. Do you think? I don't know if you thought about it already or not, but what could you have done differently? What you could have done better? And obviously we'll get to the lessons part inevitably, right? But do you think? Two specific questions. Do you think you should get somebody to, like a product manager or somebody, to actually run that product after a while, who then, because you start losing interest, and just have somebody, you'd still be overseeing the development, but somebody who'd be there in the nitty-gritty to take it forward? Maybe it was too early for that as well. I'm not sure. Is that something that you considered, and what do you think about that? And the other question is, no, let's just go with that first.
Yeah, this is exactly what we do with all of our products that do take off. We have then we set up an internal team in the company that runs the product. Dan and I can focus on new things. So this is our
so you've already
modus operandi.
So already figured out that that's the only way that works for you in general.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. What about the marketing person or a salesperson? That's something that you mentioned, that you don't have somebody who would be just dedicated to marketing and sales. I know we touched on that also last time. Would you reconsider that now, or you think that's just not the way how you guys operate?
I mean, for WooCart, marketing and salesperson would not help. It was a completely wrong approach to the problem. We can talk about that. Let's get back to that. So the problem with marketing and salesperson in the company, we tried it a number of times in the past, is that we are a company of introverts.
Yeah.
Right? And we've grown up on the internet, and we have, we're comfortable living inside IRC, today Slack, and this kind of the introvert soothing environments, right?
Yeah.
And so we're a remote company. We're stretched from Europe to Japan, and we meet twice a year for 5 days. Before COVID, obviously.
Yeah.
I haven't seen some of my colleagues for over 2.5 years, which is super painful. We're meeting this July, so in a few weeks. So I'm super looking forward to that.
Nice.
So apart from those 5 days every 6 months, we don't see each other, and we just like to be. Everybody's in our own cave, isolated from other humans, and we're just working on code, and we're happy.
Which is funny, because the way how I know Neyts is mostly we're just like partying together and traveling together. So there's the other side of Neyts as well. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I've learned how to act like an extrovert, and I can do it, but it just completely drains my energy. Like I can do it for like this 5 days when people are gonna come, and my coworkers are gonna come to Slovenia. I'm gonna basically be their tour, and I'll take them, hiking and mountain biking and restaurants and whatnot. And then 5 days after that, I'm just gonna be silent. Like even my wife.
Social hangover.
Yeah, exactly. She knows that whenever I get back from conferences, I just go like. I just cannot speak. So, it's an acquired skill that I got, but it's definitely not. I don't. It drains my energy, right? And usually salespeople, I've met people, fantastic salespeople that are not like this, but the people that we've had in the team in the past were clearly extroverted, and they gain energy by talking with people, by interacting, and we all drain our energy by doing that. And it was such a big clash of cultures that it never really worked out. And like I said, we tried with a lot of people, and some that were with us for 3 months, some that were with us for 3 years. But in the end, it always kind of didn't work out, just purely from the culture perspective. And we're kind of I'm content with never, at least something, unless something really changes, never having a big enterprise project, right? And that's what we actually say on our website. We're a small business serving small businesses, and we're gonna stick to that. This is where we're good at. So companies up to maybe 50 employees would be our maximum, because when you get above 50 people, you already have this long sales procedures, and we don't like to do that, so we don't do it. So yeah, it's definitely a choice. It's a lifestyle choice more than it is anything else. So for business sense, it would be much better if we would do a lot of sales. If we would have salespeople in the team, and if we would be doing sales calls, I'm sure we would have more money, but we're just not doing this just to keep the team happy.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean,
it's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off, yeah. Have you worked with an agency ever, or would that even be helpful for you?
Yeah. We did, I think, for Zupan.
I'm asking, by the way, because there are probably a lot of people, like that, who are very technical. That's what they enjoy doing. They kind of hate hanging out with salespeople because, it is a completely different dynamic, right? So I think it's an interesting topic. How you approach it and how you think about it.
We tried a few agencies. What we usually found is that we didn't get basically the return on investment was not there, and then we stopped.
There was one question that I remember now when I was thinking. So a friend of mine recently sold his business for about a million euros, and larger companies acquired that business, and he can still see what they're doing, and he can still see their accounts because the transaction is not 100% complete yet. It's kind of a process, and he's like, man, they fucked up everything. The revenue's going down. They messed up the whole website. Look, he was showing me on his screen. Like, this is not gonna work. This is not gonna work. That's a terrible decision. So like, man, that's pretty bad. He spent obviously years. Okay, he got his money, so that's good. He's happy. But well, first of all, he's now kind of seeing his business slowly going downwards. Hopefully, they're gonna fix it. I don't know. But also, potentially a terrible acquisition for the business. They just weren't able to handle it. And I don't think it's easy. I think acquisitions are pretty hard because, you acquire something, you don't really know. I mean, you know what you're buying, but you don't necessarily really know what you're buying. Ideally, you know how you're going to handle it. And ideally, I think in most cases, acquirers, they have a plan of action, how they're going to grow that business significantly. I'm wondering, what was your experience, or do you know how WooCard is doing now, or what are they doing with it?
Yeah. So first of all, I have the same anecdotal, anecdata from my friends of acquisitions just going down after the acquisition actually happening. For WooCard, I do not know because our transition has completely completed and we don't have any access. But during the transition period, it seems like they really know what they're doing. Also, because we are a remote company, everything is documented. So all of our processes are documented. All the experiments, even marketing experiments, everything is in GitHub. Everything is in GitHub issues, and they can check. And we actually show them, like, we tried this, we tried that, we tried X, and these were the results. And we tried this iteration, we tried that iteration, and we believe in documenting everything, and everything is documented, not just the code and the technical aspects. It's also the marketing side is documented. So I like to believe that helped.
Okay, that probably helps, and probably also makes it actually an easier decision for a potential acquirer, right?
Yeah,
because they're like, well, they kind of feel like they're taking on less risk. Everything's documented. It's all makes it just much more transparent.
Yeah.
So that actually sounds like a good idea. And what was I going to say? So would you say that the whole acquisition or sale of the product, do you think they did it in a good way?
Yeah. We had a really good experience. Again, we went with MicroAcquire, which is basically a marketplace for people that want to sell or sell their product, or people that want to buy projects. And it was very smooth. They had a very knowledgeable technical team. We onboarded them in a few days, and then they went through all our docs, and we helped them transition some parts of the technical stack to the technologies that they were familiar with. We rewrote just one tiny part, the DevOps. DevOps is usually where people have strong opinions how they want to run stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was really smooth. Yeah.
Okay. Is that the first product that you sold, or I think you've sold some things
We
before, right?
sold another product before. So before the big hosting success, we had a minor success with also in the SEO space, which was a good example of how you do a minimal product, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my partner had an idea. I hacked it up through the weekend because we were still a consulting agency back then. I didn't have the full-time time to work on it full-time. And then he basically created a forum. There was this famous SEO forum. Doesn't matter. So he created a post there and paid like $50 for it, and said like, if you want to sign up, this is my email, PayPal email. Just send $50 there, and I'll send you access. And then when he got an email, he called me like, hey, can you create an account for this person? And I was logged in. I went directly to the database, added the new account, sent him the password, and he would then send it to the customer. And then once we like this happened more than once a day, we're like, okay, let's maybe integrate some payment processor. And then yeah, it just kind of grew really from a completely minimal hacked thing over a weekend. It grew to like 5-10K MRR or something like that, and we sold it because we really wanted to focus on the big hosting project. We sold it to basically a friend company, so because they had the people that could run it and keep maintaining it, and yeah, I think it still runs, and it's been I don't know how many years. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, now the most obvious question that was kind of postponing for a while, I suppose, is the lessons, or if you had to do it again. No, actually, no. Let's start a little bit differently. When did you realize and you said, okay, this is probably not going to work. We need to get out of this project?
About $500,000 in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you like going through the costs and you were like, ooh.
Yeah, this is smelling like sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
About half a million. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. We might have gotten ourselves into a hole there.
Okay.
And then we needed to spend another $500,000 to really get out.
Yeah. Wow, which is interesting, which is fascinating, right? Because okay, so what was that other $500,000 then? Like what, how was that? What did you spend that on, or how did you have to prepare it to be ready for sale, or
So the first $500,000 went in really fast because the big mistake was we now have the money, we need to do it properly, so we hired a lot of extra people, external contractors to do the design, front end and whatnot, and that was super expensive. And we also spent a lot in ads, and because we were spending a lot in ads, we kind of got this almost similar amounts of interest than with our successful projects in the past, but those were completely organic.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, like stupid.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot, yeah, we have 2,000 people on the mailing list. Yeah, sure. If you're throwing 10K a month into ads, you're gonna have people on the mailing list. And so let's say about 2 years or less than 2 years in, we were like, yeah, we need to do this differently. So we decided we're not gonna spend money on contractors anymore. So we did keep some contractors, but only as basically mentors for us. So it was after the initial let's say year and a half of like, yeah, we're gonna do this proper, throw money at it. We defaulted back to how we usually approached things, which is we're setting ourselves up so that we cannot fail, in a sense where yes, like after like the second $500,000, let's say, was still a loss, but we learned so much from it. So it was it was still a positive investment.
Okay.
Because before this project we were mostly back-end people, so front-end was just like, yeah, just do some HTML, sprinkle some JavaScript and stuff, it's probably fine. And with this project, we then intentionally wanted to learn proper separation between backend and frontend, and have a good API and, specification in between. And we also changed our We upgraded our DevOps practices by a huge margin. So yeah, once we saw there's going to be potentially a problem with this project, we kind of tilted or switched the process a bit in a way that if it fails, at least the technical skills in the company are 1 or 2 levels higher.
Okay.
Yeah, and that kind of made sense and to keep trying, right?
Okay, I see.
Yeah, because we do want to build more products in the future, and the things that we learned are already proving to be super successful or super useful. Sorry.
So what did you learn?
It's like really technical details.
Aha, okay.
Really.
No, we don't need to go into that.
Yeah.
What about, from business perspective, building products, main takeaways?
What you said before, humility.
Yeah.
You gotta keep humble.
The Marines know something.
Yeah. I mean, obviously. Yeah. They've been through some shit. That's one thing. The other is so the WooCart went into a stable market or an existing market with competitors that had good enough products, right? And our product is still, I would say, it's better, but it's not 10 times better. And if you don't, like in markets like this, in well-established markets, it's just the MVP is just so much bigger than in niches where that are not served well. So let me expand on that. If you have a small niche of people that have a specific problem and nobody serves that problem well, you can come in with an MVP that is really shitty, shitty UI, everything, and they're gonna love it because it solves the problem. But we were attacking problem space that were already handled good enough, well enough, and we were handling it a bit better, but not 10 times better. So that's the main lesson that we learned, I think. It's this, well-established markets already have good enough solutions, and they are hard to beat.
How do you know if you're doing something 10 times better? I've asked myself that question, right? Because it's a known kind of thing in tech, right? If you want to build this product that's going to be a disruptive product that's going to sell really well, it needs to be 10 times better. Now, sometimes you can measure that, if we're talking about, I don't know, processor speed, or, I don't know, some things are measurable, some things are not necessarily measurable. It's a bit more subjective. What do you think?
It's hard to know in advance. What we do now, after WooCart, we're now trying different products. My current mantra for this is just give it 6 months, or maybe a year, and I don't know if this is the best approach, but we know how it feels when you find something good, and I guess we have some intuition what will be good and what won't be, but that intuition is not precise enough to know in advance. So my current approach is I guess we have time to do many experiments, so we're just gonna do them. We're gonna try to prioritize based on intuition, but not give too much weight into the intuition of will something stick or not. We're gonna try to throw more stuff at the wall than to. So instead of spending 3 months deciding between A, B, and C, we're just gonna do A for 3 months, and then B for 3 months and C for 3 months, and in the long scheme of things, hopefully that will bring out better results.
It's interesting also. Something that I guess I figured out kind of recently. You don't necessarily need to be 10 times better at your product. You can also be 10 times better at marketing.
Oh, for sure.
Which is controversial for you, or not controversial, but obviously not something that would work for you, because you got different philosophy of how you guys work, right? Different strategies.
Skill sets. Yeah.
But for me, as somebody who's technical and somebody who's coming from a startup world where things need to be innovative, that was something that it was not intuitive to me in the beginning. But over time, I realized, there are so many products that are actually definitely not better, maybe worse, or definitely not 10 times better, maybe worse, but their marketing is 10 times better. And it works. And I probably talk about that often just because to me that was so fascinating when I discovered it. I was like, oh, okay. You just need to communicate it really well.
Yeah. That's very true. That's very true.
Okay, so that's on the product development side.
Yeah.
But any other lessons?
So there's another lesson that we learned in the last year, which is a lot of the times, or at least that's what it seems now, is that positive feedback could be useless.
Okay, tell me more.
Yeah. So the thing that I've been doing for the last year, so I haven't been actively involved with WooCard for more than a year, maybe 2 years now. So I was doing a new product called Pareto Security, which is a simple menu bar app for Macs that checks that you have the basic Mac security setup. So for example, so Mac OS by default is quite a secured operating system, but you need to have things turned on such as firewall, disk encryption, things like that. And this app just checks that you have everything turned on and reminds you if you don't, right?
Yeah.
And we went very lean with this. I basically posted on a few Slack groups that I'm part of, and everyone was like, "Yeah, I need this, awesome. I'm totally gonna buy it."
So you posted it when was there already an MVP developed?
No. It was an idea because
So you just said, hey, like what? Hey, would you buy this, or did you say, hey, I've got this thing that I'm building, or?
No, the thing was that I wanted this for myself.
Uh-huh.
I run a small company, and I want to make sure that everybody in the company has their disk encryption turned on and has their firewall turned on. And in a bigger company, you would have a centralized IT department that would push these settings onto the machines. But to me, this is a bit unethical, especially in a smaller team setting. Like I want people that work for us. I don't want to have control over their machines. I don't want to be able to see what they're doing or see which apps they have installed. Like that's not my business. So I didn't have. So the only way was to check with everybody on one-on-ones. Like, hey, can you please open up your system preference and let's both look at your settings to make sure that you have everything set up, which is super annoying to do for someone who's an introvert, right? And it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. So I needed this, and there was actually a debate on one of the forums that I'm part of, where someone was asking if this, like, how do you do information security for small teams? And I was like, yeah, I haven't found it yet. It doesn't exist, but I was thinking of building it, and everyone was like, yes, build it, right? Okay. So I did a sales page, a very simple sales page, just one page describing what I just said, and I posted it again on my Twitter, a few Slack accounts, and people sign up. And like in the end, it had like a buy button, but it was actually a sign up to my newsletter once you clicked it, because like, sorry, it's not built yet. And a few people signed up, like maybe 100.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, 100 is something.
That's something, yeah.
We built a very basic beta in a month, just 4 checks. You have a password for login, which is super important. You don't want to just open your laptop and people can type.
Yeah.
Firewall, disk encryption, and a screen lock, so that if you're not using your machine, that the screen will
after a few minutes.
Yeah, after a few minutes. And we set the price, I think $10 or something like that. And people started buying, and it was like, okay, there was some traction. But the idea from the start was that this app is not standalone, but it sends the state of these checks to a centralized server, and then you as a business owner can see all the devices in your company, and you see the state of checks. So it's kind of a sweet spot between having an intrusive, fully managed way into all the devices in your company that I don't want, and at least some protection, so you know that people have disk encryption enabled. Right?
Yeah.
And from the start, people were really interested in that and were really supporting me and blah blah blah. But then when we launched it, the people it was really hard to get everyone on board it. And I knew this from the start, that security is going to be really hard sell, because security is always on the bottom of your to-do list. Like you would much prefer as a business owner to do something that will bring you more money, then make sure that you don't get hacked, right?
Yeah, especially small businesses.
Yeah, and I realized that a lot of people supported us, or publicly said, yes, this is amazing, I love this, because they just like the idea of people working on security.
Yeah. Okay, I see.
But then when it's time to shell out the money, then it's like people are like, yeah, maybe next month. And I've been chasing people that have been super, super, super eager about this product for like 6 months before they signed up. And like our entry level plan is like 15 euros a month, like nothing, right? Or 20, I don't know. But yeah, so this positive feedback potentially is in some products, especially security and privacy, is useless. And I know that, like, I don't want to talk bad about these people because I do the same. Yeah. I do completely the same.
You're happy that you're doing that, right? You just not necessarily want to buy it.
Exactly. Like, oh, this is an amazing thing, and like we need this as a civilization.
The world needs this.
I'm gonna support it in every way that I can, except paying for it.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of, there are probably a lot of similar projects in the eco space or recycling space. It's like, we're all like, yeah, man, we totally need this. I support you so much. You should do it. But when there's time to buy that, you're like, well, I don't know. Do I need it? Everyone else needs it, but I'm not sure if I need it,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can relate definitely to that, to that market more than to security, I suppose, because that's not that much of my field.
Yeah. And another one we tried, which again for our internal use case, we built a small Wi-Fi module that you put a SIM card into it, and then we wrote software so that any SMS you receive on this SIM card, it will forward it to our Slack.
Okay.
Right, and you would. The reason why we need this is that some companies still require, Apple still require that you use SMS two-factor authentication, and we have a business account. So whose number you're gonna use, and what if that person is on vacation?
Right. I can relate to that problem. I totally have that problem. Yeah.
And so we built this small thing for us, and it works fantastic. We've been using it for a year and a half. So we used, and it's also more secure because maybe the person's number that you use for SMS authentication is public, and people can try to get their way into this number and then get access to your account. If you use this module, you use a dedicated SIM card just for this device that is not published anywhere, so it's even more secure. Works great. I'm doing a bit of user research for this Pareto security product, and someone, just in passing, we mentioned this device to someone. They go like, yes, I need this, amazing. And we're like, okay, cool, let's see if there's something for this thing, right? And we want to be nice to people, and we build this whole instructions how you build this thing like yourself, like a DIY instructions, what parts to order, how to solder, a nice GitHub page, a sales page, and we publish it and put it into, again, my Twitter feed, Slacks, and everybody's resharing and tweeting, and amazing. And we have CTOs from known companies retweeting us like, oh, I love this thing, amazing. 2 pre-orders.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That could be that could be like a Kickstarter product, or not?
Yeah, it could. We didn't want to go Kickstarter way because that would be even more investment into the marketing. Here was like, let's do a sales page, takes us a day or two.
No, for sure. Kickstarter is a lot of work. I think that's what people are not aware of. I don't know how much it is these days, but when I was a bit more involved with Kickstarter, you'd have to spend 15 grand just on the campaign.
Exactly.
To just get the word out, to set up a proper campaign that would then hopefully generate money, right?
Yeah, and this is a device for 80 euros. That is not a subscription, so it's an 80 euros. And we're like, we're not spending, this is not going to make us any money. We're doing this for the lols, basically, because, it's fun. It's a hardware project.
Well, hopefully, I mean, if Pareto works well, then maybe there's some upsell opportunities there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's potentially it's going to be part of the Pareto security suite of products. We're doing more products that are going to be complementary to Pareto security.
Yes. Okay, so I see you're learning from the things that work well, using leverage.
Exactly, because we do have a lot of customers on Pareto, but the lifetime personal. So if you just use Pareto on your machine, it only costs 15 euros lifetime.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Subscription is only if you want this dashboard for reporting.
Makes sense. Yeah, right? Okay, that makes sense.
And we have a lot of those personal users, like personal license users.
Mm-hmm.
And we're thinking if we try to have more similar products in the same space and to the same users, maybe we find something where where a subscription does make sense. Because in the end, we want to have a subscription. We've learned that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a very good point, right? I mean, obviously as a business, it just makes sense, right? It's just so much more stable and it keeps growing. It's an ongoing growth, hopefully, through subscription, yeah.
And for the culture of the company, that's a big drawback when you're an agency, right? At least for tech agencies, you need to go to conferences.
Yeah.
Like you absolutely need to go to conferences.
Yeah, that's what you said. That's where you got the clients, right?
Yeah, that's where you get the clients, and also like to learn what the upcoming stack is and like new approaches. And if you have a recurring business, if you take like a week where an entire team goes to a conference to learn, like you're still gonna earn the same amount of money by the end of the month, right? If you have an agency, first you have the cost of the conference, flying everybody there, hotels, it's expensive, conference fees expense, and then you have the lost opportunity cost of not earning anything during that week. So all the conferences are twice or 3 times as expensive, like bottom line. Yeah. So we definitely want a subscription project for anything, subscription. That's the way to go.
Yeah, that's the way to go. That makes sense. Yeah. What did it say? Oh, yeah. On positive feedback, right? You said positive feedback. You gotta be careful. Positive feedback can be dangerous. There is a really, really good book. So I've read quite a few books. Very few of them I actually remember, which is shocking, but also maybe good because I remember the good ones. The ones that I remember are probably really good. And this is one that really stuck in my mind. It's a super thin book called
Mom's Test.
Mom's Test. Yeah.
So
easier said than done, to be clear, but so you know it.
Yeah. So the main premise of the Mom Test is that you're gonna get positive feedback from people that you know, or that people that want good for you, right?
Yeah, that's the main thing. But then there's a bunch of, I got like a bullet point version of that book that I prepared for myself. I used to work at Hackoing, which was I guess sort of a competitor to some extent of MP Hub, and we had checklists for everything, and that was one of the checklists that I created at that point. Just if you're testing an idea, here's like the checklist of things that you need to test, and yeah, it's like a process, right? Of how do you actually ask people for feedback?
We use that a lot. Like we do all the discovery phases. Is that everything's based on? I mean, everything. We base a lot of it on the Mom's Test. Definitely, that approach there makes a lot of sense.
Because it feels so good when somebody says, "Yeah, that's a great idea." You're like, "Fuck yeah, it's a great idea." And you're like, "Thanks."
Yeah, and the lesson learned in the last year was that we knew that we shouldn't accept positive feedback from people that are in our basically our friends and people that we know. But now we also know that if you're doing a security/privacy potentially eco product, that even strangers will give you positive feedback. But they just want good for you, but they will not actually cough up the money.
I guess anyone who's like a strong community, anything that has a strong, very, I don't know, purpose-driven kind of community, right? And you're like, we need more of that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know who's gonna buy it, but we need more of that.
It's not gonna be me, but we need that. Someone needs to buy that.
Exactly. Wow. One thing that I like to ask, that I learned from the book, from the Mom Test, is asking people how do you currently solve that problem.
Exactly.
Because I think that's again, I mean, there are nuances to that, right? But I think that's a good test. If they're solving it in some way already, it's like, okay, I can provide a better solution for that.
Exactly.
It's like that's one good question to ask. Okay, back to any other lessons that you want to share, actually, because we keep kind of expanding on some of the lessons that you mentioned, right? One was not taking positive feedback too seriously, I suppose. Just be careful with positive feedback. Always like search for negative feedback and ask smart questions. The Mom Test is a great test. It's a great book. I recommend everyone to read that. And then he said, solve problems. Create a solution that's 10 times better than what's out there in one way.
or just you have to know that if you're going into a market that already has established players,
Yeah.
it's gonna take a lot of time to get customers from those products, unless your product is 10 times better. And a lot of times it cannot be 10 times better because the existing players are already have good enough solutions.
Another point of that. So recently, the guest was my guest on podcast was Callum, the founder of Reviews.io, which is a pretty popular review solution in the UK, particularly a few other markets as well. Australia, he mentioned, the US as well, I think now. So, anyways, everyone knows Trustpilot, right? Trustpilot is a well-known company. Reviews.io is a competitor of theirs, and he said that most of their clients were previously Trustpilot clients, and they were very dissatisfied about certain aspects of Trustpilot, and that's how they then came. Are we still recording? We are. Okay, all good. The screen just went black, but we're good. That most of the time, the clients came from Trustpilot because they were dissatisfied with something, and Reviews.io were able to provide a better solution for those particular clients. So probably not for everyone. And he said, look, that's how we were able to survive as also a non-funded or self-funded company, right? They never raised any funding, while Trustpilot raised, I don't remember, but I think it's in the hundreds of millions. So a lot of money. But that's how we were competing. We were not the first ones in the market because there's no way we could educate the market and create that market. We're not probably the best in all aspects, but we're the best in certain aspects.
And do you remember what was the differentiating thing for those customers?
So I asked him that question. He said that the main thing is they're 40. They have 40 employees. So they're a much smaller company than Trustpilot. And he said we're genuinely super nice and we care about our customers, and that's the number one thing. And it's true. I know so many people who hate Trustpilot, and they say they absolutely don't give a shit about us. We pay them so much money, and they just don't. They don't care about us. It's a terrible experience for us as their users, the corporate users, how you should say, right? The companies, because obviously their users are also people who just read the reviews. And he said that that's one of the main things. They have other aspects as well in terms of more features and functionalities, but he said that he believes that that's the main thing. They care about their clients, and those clients who are disappointed about Trustpilot, they come to them, and they're just better taken care of.
Yeah, I mean that's I see that as what you said previously, that you can also compete with being great with marketing.
Yeah.
And it's you can say it's not just marketing; it's also obviously the product experience has to be good, the customer support needs to be good. But I would kind of generally say that that's closer to marketing expertise than it is to technical expertise.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely possible. Or potentially even more. There's potentially more products that are successful because their marketing is great than products and.
Very likely.
Yeah.
Highly likely. Yeah. That's a painful lesson that every technical person needs to learn. That's like marketing is, at the end of the day, you can have an exceptional product if you don't know how to get the word out. It's just gonna be there, but.
Or it's just gonna take a lot of much longer.
Take a lot of time. So is there anything else that you'll do differently now? You're launching Pareto, so that's obviously taking off. You definitely have many other ideas. Is there anything else that you'll do differently with the next products?
Try to stay humble. Is the main one. Another hard rule that we now have is we're only spending on ads as much as the project's actually earning. So in case of Pareto, we're currently at, let's say, 1,500 MRR. So this is how much we're spending for ads.
Okay.
Not
after on the ads. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
So that at the end of the day, if we're paying, if a product fails, and let's say with Pareto we do 300K of a loss, if that loss is completely salaries for our team members, it's fine. It could be worse. If we paid our people, we learned some things, and we had fun. It's good, right? With WooCart, what the painful thing is that so much of that money went to ads, went to marketing agencies, went to external contractors. So that's money completely lost, right? It was, but if we keep investing into our team, then the loss can be, I mean, it's not a loss then. It's just, it was an investment, it was a gamble. We learned something, we move on. Yeah, so that's the main, like one of the main things that we're doing now. Be a bit more humble.
I can't wait. I think one day you'll write like a book or like a really long blog post, like 150 failures, or probably there's gonna be more, but
yeah, by that point.
Whatever 100 failures, and the lessons you took from those, and the, I don't know, $1 billion exit.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go to one.
I don't think that's what you're after.
No. I've been fantasizing about doing a talk at some conference titled "Why Every Founder Should Windsurf," and it always gets rejected because like it sounds like a stupid title.
Yeah.
But the general idea is windsurfing is a fucking hard sport. Like it's so annoying.
Yeah.
It's like to do the basic turn. So you're going one way, and then you want to turn the other way and come back. You need to try about 1,000 times. And you just fall and fall and fall and fall and fall and fall, and everything hurts, and then you fall, and then you come back next day, and you just keep on falling and falling and falling, and you have to do that for 2 years or 3 years, and then suddenly you do you flip the sail, and the board just keeps spinning, and like it's so easy once you do it, but before that you have to fail 1,000 times.
I see the lesson.
And I really like windsurfing, and I think I like windsurfing because it's so fucking hard. Because I need to invest just so much blood, sweat, and tears into landing one move or one trick, that then once I do it, I'm like, it's completely overwhelmed with endorphins and everything. Just like, wow. And I find a lot of similarities between windsurfing and this early stage bootstrapping, because you just have to fail so many times and not take it as a failure, but like I've learned after 15 years of windsurfing that whenever I'm learning something new, it's just gonna take 1,000 attempts, right? So when I'm learning something new and I'm at the early stages, I just go like, today I'm not gonna land that new trick or that move. Today I'm just gonna have 50 attempts. So this is my goal for today. 50 attempts, just get 1 millimeter closer. And this is the approach that I'm taking with Niteo, like these days with new projects. Like I know that we're gonna have to fail probably 20 more times until we get to the next successful product, right? And the faster we can go through these 20 failures,
the better it is. Fail fast, right?
Fail fast, or not fail fast, but just do more attempts is what I'm trying.
Do more attempts.
Don't take like 3 years for one attempt. Like ideally we would like, so our yearly goal for this year is to try 4 projects.
Okay. I like that you actually, I wanted to ask that and I forgot. If you had some kind of target of how many new things you try to launch in a given period of time.
It's not long. We don't want to, not specifically want to get up to the launch point, but just basically invest, let's say 2 to 3 months into a project at least. So not launch, but we want to get up to a point where we have a sales page where we take pre-orders or gather emails for interest, and then start and then see, try to gauge based on our intuition, does that make sense or not.
How do you usually get the first traffic to that page? You mentioned communities, you often like posting communities, which can be a good idea or a bad idea, because then you also get a bunch of just supporters, right? Customers.
We tried product hunt in the past. Obviously there's always family and friends, and I go to conferences a lot, so in the past year I went to a number of conferences, gave talks there, and I always mentioned Pareto in the talk, and it always, there was after every talk there was like an uptake in traffic for sure. So things like that. We also always try ads, even with Pareto, which is like a couple €100 here and there, to see what approaches could work. we're trying now. I tried with Pareto. I tried also with going with podcasts and YouTube channels, but that just didn't work at all. It's not like there was no return on investment. There wasn't, but like it's just impossible to get someone to sponsor a podcast. Like I'm flabbergasted. Like I sent, let's say, 30 emails to podcast hosts. Hey, I'd like to sponsor your podcast. Zero reply.
Really?
How do you guys do business? Like, what the fuck's going on?
Really?
I'm so surprised. I talked with people, and everyone's like, yeah, I don't know how these influencers people how they make business.
That's interesting. I want to give you money. Nope.
Yeah, just radio silence. Or like we had one big boss because we were like they send me like their basic standard offer and we're like, okay, we'd like to have this and that, and the reply was like, no, actually we changed our mind. I think at this point it doesn't suit our audience.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I was super surprised. And so a person that I know well who works in a bit bigger company, let's say a few hundred employees, and they have a worldwide product, 20 years in the market.
Yeah.
And they have the same problem. Like they want to give, they want to sponsor influencers to talk about a product, IT product, and they just have, it's just, to get them to reply is just such a pain in the ass. So that was super surprising. I was under the impression like I'm just gonna throw money at podcast hosts because I like to listen to podcasts, and it was also my kind of, I rationalized in a way, even if there's no return on investment, it's my kind of way of giving back because podcasts are super nice.
Yeah.
But then people just didn't want to take the money. It's like, wow,
that is interesting. Because on the other side, I'm pretty sure you have a lot of podcasters also who just struggle to get sponsors. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I know.
I know that there are some ways. I didn't even, for the Founders Lounge, I didn't even look into monetization. Maybe one day, but I know that there are some networks where you can join as a podcaster. You can join, and then I suppose you're matched with companies. Maybe that's the way. Obviously, the network takes a percentage, right? And if you do that, so
yeah, maybe
ideally it's better to go direct. But
it was just surprising. Like it was so far different to what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I was send emails like, hey, can I give you money? And they was like, this is our offer. Done.
Usually it's the opposite dynamic, right?
Yeah,
the podcaster.
You really have to kind of massage them. Like, please, can we sponsor?
Interesting. I would not expect that.
Yeah, exactly.
What do I want to say? Did we skip anything? I'm not sure. Do you think we talked about everything?
I mean, yeah, mostly. It's a lot of people say that the first project is under-engineered and the second one is over-engineered.
Yeah.
Right. I wouldn't say this was our first and second project because we had successful projects before, but it was the first time when we were not in a pinch for money. We were like, we have the team that runs the existing project. It's super profitable, and we can take as much time and money as we want to build out WooCard, and we just got completely arrogant. I'm coming back to the same story. It's just, I know I've talked to people that run a product business and they want to go into multi-product.
Yeah.
And my main, the thing that I hope they learn is just keep humble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the lesson number one. Stay humble.
Stay humble, yeah.
Cool. Then I think we wrap up. I think that's the podcast. That's the episode for today.
Yeah, awesome. I hope in a few years we can, or in a few months, a few years next year, we can do another one, and maybe I have some more details to share. I mean, not details, but some more anecdata.
Yeah.
We're thinking of building like a spreadsheet where you would kind of grade the products ideas, and then we would get a number at the end, and then after a certain number we try it and not. So we're kind of doing that at the moment. It's very early, so that's why I want to do four projects this year, because we want to test that.
To create that spreadsheet grader kind of thing.
So maybe in a year or so that has matured enough that I can talk about it and share it.
I think the Product Hunt community would be interested in that. It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Or like indie hackers kind of community at least.
And it's definitely going to be open source. But I really don't want to share it now because it's just a bunch of our intuition that may or may not be correct. But we want to test it out and see if it's going to work.
Nice. Cool. Well done.
Yeah.
We'll wait for the update. All right, Nate. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
And we'll see you for the next update.